What, from your viewpoint right now, is the best possible outcome, the best possible end to this war for the United States?
The best possible outcome is to stop it now and cut our losses and try to get some sort of deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz without paying a whole bunch of blood money to the Iranians. But when Rubio says that Iran is paying the economic cost and not America, well, go ask Americans who are trying to buy gas right now who's paying the economic cost of this war. Ask Americans who are going to have to buy fertilizer for their farms in a few months who's paying the economic cost of this war. The reality is that the administration is begging to get out of this because they recognize they're really at a dead end. And it'll be a miracle if they can just get the strait reopened without paying off the Iranians to do so. Then you got to go back and start to negotiate a nuclear deal that, as Senator Booker said, they just trashed when they took it from Obama.
And yet, Congressman, that nuclear deal, or at least the contours of what this ceasefire deal might produce, and again, the negotiations are on, then they're off. It's kind of hard to keep track. But the contours do look kind of similar to that Obama-era JCPOA. You're forced to sort of wonder, what if the administration in the first iteration of it hadn't pulled out of that deal in the first place? But aren't there shades of this that Democrats have supported before when it was Obama negotiated?
I mean, Ali, you're absolutely right that the deal they're trying to get back to is what we had 10 years ago. And no one talks about the alternative reality here. Like, what if we actually took that deal and Trump had said, you know what, this is a terrible deal. I don't like it because Obama did it. But instead of tearing it up, he had built on top of it. Remember, the first Soviet nuclear deal didn't end there. It was followed by more. So he could have built on top of that. If he had done that every single time, it would have empowered the moderates in Iran. Instead of proving the hardliners right that you can't trust the West, we might have a totally different government in Iran today. We might have successful protests who empowered moderate governments because they're the ones who supported this nuclear deal, and Iran might have no nuclear weapons. But instead of building on that diplomatic process, Trump just tore up the agreement out of spite for Obama. He started in a war that's gotten 14 Americans killed, thousands of civilians killed, about 200 Iranian girls, little girls going to school dead, and has achieved nothing except raising gas prices for Americans.
Hey, Congressman, I'm wondering, we still have 2 carrier groups online in the region. We still have over 10,000 troops online in the region, boots on the ground. And yet there has been very little talk, I think, about the cost, the daily cost of this war to the American taxpayer. You want to take a ballpark estimate at the daily cost of this war?
I don't know what the daily cost is, but when they came before the administration, when Hegseth came before Congress and said it was a $25 billion war so far, I think that's a blatant lie. Remember, the first number they put before us when they asked for supplemental funding was $200 billion. And to put that in context, because we throw these numbers around all the time. Oh, we talk about billions every day. 200 doesn't sound that much. That's about $1,200 for every American taxpayer. So how many people watching the show this morning have an extra $1,200 lying around on their kitchen counter to pay for this war that's raised their gas prices and killed 14 Americans?
Congressman, let's switch gears now. Bill Pulte was named by President Trump as the acting DNI, despite zero obvious qualifications except being a Trump loyalist, and a Trump loyalist who seems to be willing to do the president's bidding in terms of going after his perceived political foes. What are your concerns about this appointment, even just in the acting sense, where he could serve for a number of months? What do you fear could happen next?
Well, let's not sell him short on his qualifications. He did create that meme of Trump as Jesus. So, I mean, he's got that going for him. But the point is that not only is this guy doing Trump's corrupt business all day long, but it's also very dangerous to put him in this position. Remember, the Director of National Intelligence was established to coordinate intelligence agencies after the failed coordination that allowed 9/11 to occur. So you've got Russia conducting gray zone attacks on Europe and talking about hitting the U.S. We know that Iran is actively trying to assassinate people in the U.S. today. Terrorists are alive and well around the globe, especially in Africa, where the administration has pulled back so many troops. So this is a very dangerous world. And when you appoint some corrupt hack to be the Director of National Intelligence, that's just not bad. It doesn't just look bad. it makes us less safe. It's a very dangerous appointment for this administration.
Another topic for you, Congressman. The acting attorney general doubling down on a controversial measure that protects President Trump, his family, and his businesses from any tax scrutiny. Todd Blanche appeared before a House Appropriations Subcommittee yesterday telling lawmakers the Trump administration is no longer moving forward with its $1.776 billion so-called anti-weaponization slush fund, which would have compensated people who claim they were victims of unfair prosecution by the government, including perhaps the people who beat up cops and were convicted by juries of their peers on January 6th. The fund was initially created as part of a settlement after an IRS employee leaked President Trump's tax returns during his first term in office. However, Blanche revealed one part of that settlement will remain in place, the one providing Trump, his family, and businesses immunity from current and pending IRS audits. Blanche personally signed the document providing those audit protections. Senate Democrats say they plan to force votes on both the abandoned anti-weaponization fund and the audit protections. Congressman, so this is what you get, obviously, when you put the president's personal attorney in charge of the Department of Justice.
Well, yes, and let's not forget that the whole lawsuit they're trying to settle is a lawsuit by Trump against the Trump administration. It's the Trump administration that leaked these tax returns. But the bottom line is that the Trump family would not need this protection if they were following the law. They would not be insisting on having the IRS prevented from auditing their tax returns if they were actually honest with their tax returns. So all the rest of us, you know, we don't have protections against the IRS because we actually are truthful in our tax returns, and we know that if we lie, we might get caught. Trump has clearly put in corrupt tax returns. They're stealing money from the rest of taxpayers. You know, he is not paying his fair share, and that's why he needs this protection that he's begging for from his own personal lawyer.
Yeah, it's ironic, Seth, that what he's suing over is something presidents normally do, which is release their tax returns, which is kind of weird when you think about it. This case, at this point, it seems to me that Blanche doubling down on giving the president and his family, who had nothing to do with the leak, and his businesses, this immunity from any kind of tax consequences, gives them a free ticket to steal money from the government that belongs to the taxpayers. And so doesn't this keep this case front and center? Doesn't the court now have to go ahead and have a hearing as to whether or not this was a real lawsuit in the first place and whether fraud was committed on the court by the way this settlement was presented to the court? And isn't this going to keep this issue, especially if we take the House and the Senate in November, isn't it going to keep this front and center in terms of true legislative guardrails?
I mean, it certainly should. It certainly should be contested by the courts, of course, until it gets to the Supreme Court, which is basically bought off by the administration. But in the meantime, let's just be honest. You don't need immunity if you haven't conducted a crime. You don't need a pardon if you're not guilty. So clearly, they're just telling the entire world and the U.S. judicial system that they're guilty. And let's not forget what's at stake here. We all pay our taxes. We expect to pay what we owe the government for all the services that we get, including paying our troops who are on guard right now in the Middle East and around the globe. The Trump family doesn't think they have to pay their fair share. They think they can bilk all the rest of us. Let us, carry the, cost of Trump's weekly golf trips or daily golf trips, because that's taxpayer money too. But he's not going to pay for that. He's not going to pay his fair of taxes. No, he gets pardoned from that. He gets immunity. I mean, this is just the most blatant high-level corruption you can imagine.
So when Claire is talking about the legislative guardrails, we'll, of course, watch to see if anything is imminently done, because there are some Republicans talking about trying to block off the fund from a legislative perspective. Again, we'll see. Hope springs eternal, and yet doesn't really have much reason behind it in this Congress. But when you look at the larger midterm landscape, this is one of the things that'll factor in. But I think your race is interesting because it is yet another potential litmus test for this idea of the establishment versus the insurgent, right? And you've got points of the establishment last night, even in Tuesday's election, doing well. People like Josh Turek, who were the establishment chosen candidates, people like Chuck Schumer. And then, of course, in Maine, for example, you've got the Schumer candidate, Janet Mills, leaving the race because that wasn't where the energy was. So when you take it in totality and then apply it and layer it onto your race, What are you seeing? What are you hearing? And what are you hearing from people who are in this so-called establishment? The knee-jerk reaction is you back the incumbent, which is Senator Markey. But what is the experience that you're seeing firsthand?
People want change, and especially Democrats. I mean, if you're a Democrat in America today who honestly thinks that things are going well, that it's great that we've got a second term of Donald Trump, that we can't seem to win an election against a convicted felon, if you think that the Schumer gerontocracy, the 80-year-olds in Congress and in the Senate should be running things, if they're going to figure out AI, for example, then you should vote for the establishment. But that's not what I'm hearing. I mean, one of the most popular positions I've taken just from day one of this campaign is that I do not support Senator Schumer. Senator Markey and Senator Schumer are joined at the hip. You know, they're very close friends, and they're going to support each other. I think it's time for change. I think it's time for new leadership. I think it's time for Democrats to start winning elections.